With the Avatar The Last Airbender set now settled in after a few weeks of circulating the meta, let's have a look at which decks are winning out now. Oh hey, it's Geb. Hello everyone, the name's Geb. With the new set now sweeping the meta, we're going to be looking at some of the more interesting decks that have risen up, as well as the powerhouses that are currently dominating the meta. But first, like my previous meta video, let's go over a few disclaimers. 1. This is looking at Magic the Gathering Arena, Platinum rank or above. Any of the Omen Path cards that have been released from the previous Spider-Man set will have their Spider-Man equivalent shown alongside. 2. Your individual pod, your individual queue, your individual LGS may be a little bit different. Do not take the popularity of these decks as gospel, though do keep in mind that it does influence what people bring to the table. And 3. This is for best of one only. I will do a best of 3 follow-up video shortly after this one, so subscribe if you want to see that. Oh, and the reason why I didn't do the meta snapshot when Omen Paths came out is because really the cards weren't that good. There were a few exceptions which I'll cover in this video, but without further ado, let's look at the meta. Firstly, we look at aggro decks. Now, the ban that happened for Screaming Nemesis, which happened just before the Avatar set was released, hit most of the aggro decks pretty hard, especially the red-based ones, as most of their strategies revolved around using haste creatures and burn spells to finish games quickly, and Screaming Nemesis was a linchpin in that because of the healing denial that helped the strategy immensely. As such, the meta has shifted to becoming a bit more combo or mid-range oriented now that the aggro decks are no longer dominant. However, there is one aggro deck that has seen a meteoric rise since the bannings, and that being Mono White Aggro. This enchantment based aggro deck uses a classic Voltron strategy, aiming to play cheap creatures like Optimistic Scavenger and Wonderweave Aerialist, and then immediately suit them up with multiple auras, such as Ethereal Armor and Shardmage's Rescue, not only making these creatures massive, but also providing them with hexproof and ward. This brutally fast, resilient deck is a well-oiled machine, with every enchantment not only pumping your creature, but also drawing cards, removing threats, and even providing additional body so you don't put all your eggs in one basket. This deck preys completely on the slower decks, and any strategy that relies on one-to-one removal. Just look out for those board wipes and that dreaded nowhere to run card. Now we're moving on to mid-range. And mid-range has actually seen quite a rise, predominantly in green, thanks to one card, that being Badger Mole Cub. Now, I'm sure you've seen all of the mono-green stompy decks that have spawned out of this, so I'm going to show you something a little bit different. Naya Counters with Anim Pakal. This 1-1 counter synergy mid-range deck not only wins through the Badger Mole Cub and Ouroboros package, although it is in there and it is an option, it also features an Pakal Thousandth Moon, which summons a 1-1 army of gnomes dependent on the number of 1-1 counters she has, which can be stacked pretty easily in this deck thanks to Halana and Alena, Torgol, and even Ouroboros as I mentioned previously. You can even protect your key pieces with the fact that you have access to white through Zac Fair, giving indestructible on a 1-mana sacrifice. All of this makes for, in my opinion, a far more versatile deck than mono green Stompy, as you can win either through an enormous creature, like it normally does, or through a flood of tokens through an Pakal, or perhaps even a combination of both, allowing you to adapt your game plan on the fly, even in a best of one context. Now, moving on to control and combo decks, and one deck that still seems to be going strong is the 4-color Reanimator deck. Previously seen in the Final Fantasy meta, this deck has now evolved through the Omen Paths cards to include Kavaero Mindbitten. This deck uses self-mill through cards such as Town Greeter, Cash Grab, and Dredder's Insight to fill the graveyard with game-ending threats such as Terror of the Peaks and Bringer of the Last Gift, only to then bring them back with Kavaero Mindbitten as I previously mentioned. Well, bringing them back isn't quite the correct way to put it, it's more that it copies the card within the graveyard, which, with Bringer of the Last Gift, triggers its ability, creating a one-sided board wipe that then reanimates all the other giant creatures within your graveyard, often winning the game simply on the spot. This is the definition of an unfair deck in the current format, and the reason why all of the other decks require some amount of graveyard hate. Just keep in mind that this deck has been around for quite a while now, in some version or another. So if you do want to pilot this deck, do expect some resistance, either through exile effects, counter spells, or even graveyard hate such as Ghost Vacuum and Soul Guide Lantern. The last deck I want to feature is a very new deck that has come almost exclusively from the Avatar set, that being 4-color and 5-color allies. This tribal value midrange deck, as the name suggests, focuses on the ally creature type. Both of them uses Katara the Fearless to double all of the ally triggers. Many of them are +1/+1 counters, card draws, or even doubling up on the flash speed interaction with Ang Swift Savior. Where the decks differ is the inclusion of black for Mardu in Mardu Siegebreaker, in lieu of Appa Steadfast Guardian and Wartime Protesters. The former simply uses Katara and Earth King's Lieutenant along with a critical mass of ally cards to outvalue the opponent more of an attrition style, whereas the latter incorporates Mardu Siegebreaker that acts as a repeatable clone effect, sacrificing some amount of the consistency for the potential of triggering the same ETBs over and over again. Along with the added benefit that it comes with somewhat of a pseudo protection, as Siegebreaker becomes the target and not the key card that you exile to duplicate, and after Siegebreaker dies, it then simply just comes back out onto the battlefield. All around, both of these decks represent a powerful tribal package that is already competing quite well within the meta. So that just about does it for this meta snapshot. Let me know what decks you're running in the comments below. It's been a little while since my last video, but that was because of health related reasons, and I should be back on track now, so if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye.